Okay. BB says, hey guys, what do you think on solely doing local SEO on not on your website, but rather on all other sites that have already authority, like Blogger, Tumblr, etc.? Will this be easier? Will you need fewer backlinks? Yeah, you can. Um, you certainly can. I mean, one of the best things you can use is Google Sites for that. And we've got a number of people that's what they do. They just use Google Sites instead of like an actual self-hosted website. You can certainly do it. There's something to be said though for building a self-hosted site because you have more control over that. You know, Google could slap and terminate an account at a whim, and so can Tumblr, and so could WordPress. WordPress.com is doing that rather. They're really sensitive right now. In fact, a lot of WordPress.com sites are getting terminated, and it's just it seems like Web 2.0s go through phases where they do that. But I mean, yeah, you definitely can do local SEO or any sort of SEO using just third-party platforms. The danger is in what I just said, potentially them getting suspended or terminated, and then you lose all that work. It makes sense to diversify, which is why we, at Semantic Mastery for years have been teaching to not only build up your own self-hosted site, but Google business assets, and then the syndication network properties or branded web 2s, all of that, build up all of those, right? I know it seems like a lot of work, but there's a reason for it. Not only does it help you to rank, but it diversifies all of your different assets so that, if you lose one here or one there or a couple here or whatever, you've got multiple other assets. And that's kind of the point. If you put all of your eggs in one basket, and you lose that basket, you're screwed. So it's better to kind of spread them out across multiple assets. And that's what we teach, right? We talk about expanding the entity footprint. So you start with your golden frame, which is typically what I call the 3 tier 0 assets, your money site, Google business website, and Google Map. They're all kind of one and the same. I talk about this with my link building clients a lot. I oftentimes will cut a consultation video where in the process of analyzing their backlink profile and their competitors, because I do that every month for every link building client. We analyze their tier 0 assets. So again, the money site, Google business website, and the Google Map. We look at the backlink profiles there, and then we analyze the top 5 ranked competitors for whatever keywords it are that the clients are trying to rank for. And we because I'm always analyzing so much data for every project, I oftentimes find things that that should be addressed. And so I will oftentimes fire up a screencast recording and say, hey, Mr. or Ms. Client, this is what I found that here's some recommendations that I suggest that you make. Besides what I'm doing for my link building, here's some on-page stuff. And so, I recommend oftentimes the branded tier 1 assets are very important for expanding the entity footprint, right? And if you think about the 3 tier 0 assets, as I keep mentioning this, but just because again, it's kind of a newer term for people, but your money site, your Google business website, and your Google Map. Well, most people are familiar with Google business, and so the Google Maps profile and a self-hosted money site, right? But I like to create this visualization, and so it's kind of a way to visualize this that there's if you think about the money site on one side and the Google Map on the other side, and then the bridge between the two is the Google business website. It really does. It connects the two. And then having all of those branded assets, BB, and this is again, getting back to why I think this is important to use all of these together. But those branded tier 1 assets, it's really important to link out from the Google business website, which, by the way, the Google business website, guys, so this is the subdomain.business.site that you get as a free website as part of your Google business profile. Publish that. If you don't publish that, you're missing out on one of the most important components of local SEO, right? And that's because, again, if you think about it, and it's not about just publishing the site, publish well-tuned content on it. Right. That's again, Content Kings is perfect for this because I started learning how to do all this stuff and then developed a process and then built a team. And that's what is now available to you guys at Content Kings is my team essentially. But because I found that when you publish really well-tuned content on the Google business website, that is it really, really does help to rank in maps. but that's not enough in itself either. Like that's a big part of it. But if you now have well-tuned content, which it can, a 1,500 word ish article, right? Again, I talked about, you don't need specific word counts. It's not really important. Let the tools tell you what you need to be competitive. But let's just say it's a 1,500 word article that ends up getting published on the Google business website. You can't optimize the SEO elements like you can a self-hosted site. You can't add H2s and H3s and all that kind of stuff. You can't do that, but you can still publish well-tuned content. But so back to the analogy that I was creating or making was, if you've got your money site on one side and your Google map on the other side, and the Google business website is the kind of bridge between the two, right? It connects the two. Then linking out from that landing page article on your Google business website to the branded tier 1 assets, so your other entity assets, is almost like the suspension cables. Imagine the links to your branded assets as like the suspension cables that are holding that bridge up, which is the connection between your money site and your Google map. And if you think about it that way, it kind of makes, like, at least in my mind, it makes a very kind of clear representation of how that works and why it works so well. And so I think it's a very, very important piece to not just, you could do all full SEO on just those other kind of platforms, but I think that's dangerous. I think it's important to try to do all of them. And if you do it right, it really does. It's crazy, but I've talked about this before, but clients of mine and I'd go through this every year with tree service contractors. They hire me or my agency for me to do SEO for them, usually in the spring. And we get them ranking like crazy midsummer when it's really busy. And then fall comes and it starts to slow down, and then winter comes and things get really slow, and I lose a bunch of clients every year for that reason, because tree service clients, they don't want to spend money on monthly retainer fees over the winter months because call volume is down, and that's just because it's more of a seasonal business. And it kind of sucks because we do SEO so good that a lot of the times those clients don't come back because they continue to rank even after we stop doing SEO, if that makes sense. And it's because of what I just talked about here with, when you kind of build out all of those entity assets and you connect them all properly, you really do become an authority in your local market, right? Or at least that brand becomes an authority in their local market, and it almost becomes unmovable. Like, I mean, it's crazy, but it almost becomes unmovable. Like they're at usually around month 5. I can do it quicker if I'm more aggressive, and depending on the budget, sometimes we do. But usually around the 5th month of doing this very specific process, which I teach in the Google Business SOP, which is available in the mastermind. It's the same process that I use. But usually around month 5 is when, like, boom, they completely take over their market, and it just stays. And it's almost unmovable. Occasionally we'll see some kind of movement, but most of the time it just ranks solidly. And so when I end up losing, inevitably, every single winter, I lose a high percentage of my tree service contractor clients. A lot of the times they'll say, well, we'll be back in the spring. But then springtime comes around and they haven't moved, even though no additional work has been done. And so it's kind of like, I wish I didn't produce such a good result for them, but I can't do it any other way. You know what I mean? Like, that's just because we developed a process. We just follow the process and it works every time. And so anyway, back to your question, BB, could you do it? Yes. Do I recommend that? No. Because I feel like you really should still build the brand and the entity assets on something that you have control over in case you lose any of them, because it's always possible.